She had the text drafted, 3 paragraphs, perfectly worded, everything he'd done wrong laid out with evidence, every moment of hurt cataloged, every unfair accusation answered. She was about to hit send and finally make him understand. Instead, she deleted it. That moment, the moment between the urge to react and the choice not to, saved her 5 years of her life. Literally, 5 years of cumulative stress, arguments, and emotional exhaustion she never had to live through. The most powerful thing you can do to someone who hurts you is absolutely nothing. No argument, no explanation, no tears, no threats. Just silence. Just the kind of quiet that makes people uncomfortable. The kind of quiet that says, I see you, I understand you, and you are completely beneath my response. Most people will never understand this. Most people spend their entire lives chasing the last word, burning energy defending their name to people who have already decided who they are, reacting to every insult, explaining themselves to everyone who misunderstands them, losing sleep over things that will mean absolutely nothing in 10 years. And in doing so, they hand over their power every single time. What you're about to hear is not a self-help speech. It is not a list of tips and tricks. It is something far older, far harder, and far more dangerous to the people who try to control you. It is the code that Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius practiced while running the largest empire on earth. It is the discipline that freed Epictetus, a man who was literally born a slave, and made him one of the most powerful thinkers who ever lived. It is the weapon that the Stoics discovered over 2,000 years ago, and that the modern world has almost completely forgotten. 3 rules, that is all. Never react, never explain, just ignore. If you can truly learn to live by these 3 words, not just understand them, but live them, the way people treat you will change, the way you see yourself will change, and the way the world responds to your silence will shock you. Stay with me.
Let me ask you something. When was the last time someone said something about you that was completely wrong, and you felt that burning need to correct them, to set the record straight, to make them understand that they had it all wrong? Maybe it was at work. A colleague took credit for something you built. A manager made a comment that was unfair, and you felt it, that heat rising in your chest, that voice in your head screaming that you needed to say something, needed to defend yourself, needed to make sure they knew the truth. Or maybe it was closer. A friend, someone you trusted, said something behind your back. You found out, and suddenly your whole night was gone, spent replaying the conversation in your mind, rehearsing what you should say, what you would say, what you wished you had said. Maybe it was a relationship. Someone who once told you they loved you decided they didn't. And instead of walking away with dignity, you spent weeks, maybe months, trying to explain yourself, trying to prove your worth, sending messages you wish you could unsend, waiting for a response that never came. I'm not asking to open old wounds. I'm asking because this is the human condition. Every single person watching this, every single one of us has been there, has felt that pull, that desperate, almost physical need to react, to be understood, to be seen. And here's what the Stoics discovered that almost nobody else has the courage to admit. That need, that burning, desperate need to react and explain yourself and defend yourself, is not strength. It is a leash. Think about it. Every time you react, someone else pulled the rope. Every time you explain yourself to someone who isn't listening, you're auditioning for a role they've already cast. Every time you let someone's words live in your head rent-free, you've handed them the keys to a house you built. The person who hurt you, they moved on in an hour. They slept fine that night. They woke up refreshed the next morning. Meanwhile, you were up at 3 a.m. with your heart pounding, rehearsing conversations in your head that will never happen. That is not justice. That is not strength. That is self-inflicted suffering. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the world during his time, had a filter for every opinion he received. He asked one question: is this true, or is this just noise? In the private pages of his journal, he wrote, "If someone is able to show me that what I think or do is not right, I will happily change. But if no justification is offered other than that I'm wrong, that is not enough." He was saying, I am not moved by noise, I am moved by reason. And if reason is absent, then your opinion of me simply doesn't register. A man running the Roman Empire, dealing with war, betrayal, political enemies, personal loss, and his answer was not to fight every battle. His answer was stillness. Not weakness, not avoidance, stillness. Chosen, deliberate, disciplined stillness. That is what this video is about.
There is an old story. Its origin is uncertain, but its truth is unmistakable. A lion was walking through the forest. A small dog ran up and began barking at it furiously, snapping, growling, throwing everything it had at the lion. The lion didn't roar back, didn't bare its teeth, didn't lower its head to engage. It simply kept walking. The dog barked louder, more frantic, more desperate. The lion kept walking because the lion understood something the dog didn't, that acknowledgement is a form of surrender, that reaction is a form of respect, and that some things, some people, are simply not worth your energy. The dog was looking for a fight. The lion was on its way somewhere. Here's the question you need to ask yourself every time someone provokes you, insults you, challenges you, dismisses you. Am I a dog or a lion? Because lions don't explain themselves to dogs. Lesson 1. Never react. The first principle, never react, is the hardest of the three because reaction is biological. It is wired into us at the cellular level. When someone attacks us, physically, verbally, emotionally, our nervous system fires before our brain has a chance to think. That spike of adrenaline, that surge of cortisol, the jaw tightening, the hands clenching, the voice rising before the thought is even formed. This is not a character flaw. This is evolution. For thousands of years, the ability to react instantly was the difference between life and death. But you are not being chased by a predator. You are sitting in a meeting. You are reading a text message. You are scrolling through a comment section. And your ancient, survival-wired brain is treating a passive-aggressive email the same way it would treat a tiger. The Stoics understood this. Epictetus, who knew real suffering, who was enslaved, who had his leg broken by his master, and reportedly smiled as the bones snapped, saying only, "I told you you would break it." Epictetus taught that between a stimulus and a response, there is always a gap, and in that gap lives your entire freedom. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. But here is what most people get wrong about that teaching. They think it means feel nothing, be a robot, suppress your emotions, shove them down, wear a mask of calm while you burn inside. That is not what Epictetus meant. That is not Stoicism. That is repression. What Epictetus meant was this: notice the emotion, name it, feel it fully, and then choose your response. There is a difference between experiencing anger and being driven by anger. The Stoics were not emotionless. Marcus Aurelius wept for the people he lost. Seneca admitted to anxiety and grief. What they practiced was the mastery of the gap, that 3-second window between what happens to you and what you do next. 3 seconds. That is all the space you need. Neuroscience has confirmed that the initial spike of an emotional reaction, the chemical surge that makes you want to explode, lasts approximately 6 seconds. 6 seconds. If you can ride out those 6 seconds without speaking, without acting, without responding, the wave begins to pass. The Stoics called this the pause before the deed. Marcus Aurelius practiced it daily. He would be brought news of a battle lost, a betrayal uncovered, an ally turned enemy, and before he said a single word, he would pause. He would breathe.
He would ask himself one question: will reacting right now help? Almost always, the answer was no, so he didn't. Think about the most impulsive moments in your life. The messages sent in anger at 2 a.m., the words spoken in a fight that you can never take back, the decisions made in a moment of hurt that cost you months of consequence. Now think about this. What would your life look like if you had mastered the pause? Not suppression, the pause, the breath, the 6 seconds that stand between the person you are and the person you're capable of being. Never reacting doesn't mean never responding. It means choosing from a place of stillness whether this moment deserves your energy. And here is what happens when you master this. Something almost supernatural begins to occur. The people who used to provoke you stop, not because they become better people, but because provoking you no longer works. There's no fuel for the fire, no reaction for them to feed on. And without that reaction, without that power they used to hold over you, they become irrelevant. The Stoics had a name for this state. They called it apatheia. Not apathy in the modern sense, but a freedom from being controlled by passion and impulse, a sovereignty of the self. You can walk through fire without burning if you've learned not to flinch.
There's a reason the ocean doesn't argue with the shore. The waves crash, the tide pulls, the sand shifts, but the ocean remains the ocean. It doesn't explain itself. It doesn't justify its depth. It doesn't defend its vastness. It simply is. And in the morning, the shore is still there, and so is the ocean, unchanged, unmoved, complete. Be the ocean. Lesson 2. Never explain. The second principle is the one most people struggle with, even more than not reacting. Because at least with reacting, you know it's a problem. You've been told your whole life, don't lose your temper, control your emotions, breathe before you speak. Society has some framework for that lesson, but nobody ever told you to stop explaining yourself. In fact, you were probably taught the opposite. Be transparent, be accountable, communicate clearly, justify your decisions, keep people in the loop, be the bigger person by explaining your side. And those things are not wrong in the right context. In a healthy relationship with a person of good faith, yes, communication matters. Explanation has a place. But here is the brutal truth that the Stoics discovered long before modern psychology confirmed it. Most of the time when you feel the need to explain yourself, it's not about the other person understanding you, it's about your fear of being misunderstood. And there is a crucial difference. When you explain yourself out of fear, fear of judgment, fear of disapproval, fear of rejection, you are not communicating from strength, you are communicating from need. And the moment you communicate from need, you reveal something about your internal world, that other people's perception of you has power over your peace. There's a story, whether literal or legend, the lesson is the same, about Cato the Elder, the Roman statesman known for his brutal directness and unyielding virtue. His political enemies once launched a sustained campaign of rumors and insults against him, claiming he was corrupt, cowardly, dishonest. His response? He said, "I prefer to go unanswered, since my life refutes the charges." Let that land. My life refutes the charges. Not his words, not his arguments, not his explanations, his life. This is the deeper wisdom inside the principle of never explaining. It is not about arrogance. It is not about dismissing people. It is about understanding that your character speaks at a frequency that words cannot reach. That the people who matter, the people who are actually watching you, who are paying real attention, they are not listening to what you say about yourself. They are watching what you do when no one is watching. Explaining yourself to your critics is like trying to convince a mirror that you look different from how you appear. The mirror doesn't argue with you, it simply reflects what is there. You are the one with the power to change what's being reflected, not by arguing with the glass, but by changing yourself. And here is the other side of this truth that nobody talks about. The more you explain yourself, the more you invite people to question you. Every justification is an open door for a counter-argument. Every explanation is a vulnerability exposed.
There is a quiet confidence that comes with simply living your truth without narrating it. When you stop explaining your silence, your absences, your choices, your boundaries, people are left with only what they can observe. And what they observe is someone who does not need their approval, someone who is not performing their virtue, but living it, someone who is untouchable in the most real sense of the word, not because they're cold, but because they are complete. Marcus Aurelius wrote this in his journal, not for publication, not for posterity, but for himself alone. Confine yourself to the present, not the conversation of yesterday, not the argument of last week, not the narrative that other people are building about you in their minds. The present, what is true right now, what you are doing right now, that is where your power lives. Stop explaining yourself. Your life will do it for you.
Throw a stone into a still pond. Watch what happens. The water churns, the surface breaks, ripples spread outward, disturbing everything. For a moment, the pond is chaos. But wait, watch longer. The water settles. The ripples fade. The surface grows calm again. And eventually, the pond returns to exactly what it was. Still, deep, undisturbed. The stone is still at the bottom. It didn't change the pond. The pond absorbed it and returned to stillness. Be the pond, not the stone. Lesson 3. Just ignore. The third principle, just ignore, is the one that people mistake for weakness. And it is, without question, the most misunderstood of the three. When you tell someone who has been hurt, who has been disrespected, who has been betrayed, to just ignore it, what they hear is, just let it go, just pretend it didn't happen, just be a doormat, just accept the disrespect and move on. That is not what this means. Ignoring is not pretending. Ignoring is not weakness. Ignoring is not acceptance of mistreatment. Ignoring is the decision made consciously, made deliberately, made from a place of power that this person, this situation, this provocation does not deserve the gift of your attention. Attention is a resource. It is perhaps the most valuable resource you have. Where you place your attention is where you place your life energy. And every second you spend giving attention to something that diminishes you, every second you spend replaying the insult, plotting the response, crafting the comeback, is a second you are not spending building, growing, creating, becoming. The Stoics had a concept they called the dichotomy of control. Epictetus laid it out in the very first line of the Enchiridion, his handbook of Stoic wisdom. He wrote, "Of all existing things, some are in our power, and some are not in our power. In our power are our opinions, our impulses, our desires, our aversions. Not in our power are our bodies, our reputations, our authority, and, in a word, whatever is not our own doing. What other people think of you, not in your power. What they say about you, not in your power. How they interpret your silence, your choices, your life, not in your power." So here's the Stoic question. Why are you spending your power on things that are not in your power? There is a man named Viktor Frankl. He was an Austrian psychiatrist imprisoned in Nazi concentration camps during the Second World War. He lost everything: his home, his family, his freedom. He was stripped of every external comfort, every protection, every privilege, surrounded daily by brutality almost beyond imagination. And in the middle of all of that, he wrote one of the most profound observations ever recorded. He said, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom." Viktor Frankl had every reason to react, every reason to break down, every reason to rage and lose himself in bitterness. And instead, he chose to occupy that space. And in doing so, he remained, as he wrote, the last of the human freedoms, the freedom to choose one's own attitude in any given set of circumstances.
If someone in those conditions could still find that space, imagine what becomes possible in our everyday battles. I say that not to shame you. I say it because the same space Frankl found, that same gap between stimulus and response, exists in you, right now, today, in the middle of your smaller battles. It is there, and it is yours. Just ignore. Not from weakness, from abundance, from the understanding that you are too full, too complete, too purposeful to be emptied by small people and small moments.
Here is the part of this video that nobody else is going to tell you. The hardest person to stop reacting to is yourself. You can master not reacting to others. You can train yourself not to explain to the world. You can choose what to ignore from the people around you. But what about the voice inside your own head? The one that replays the moments you wish had gone differently. The one that catalogs every mistake. The one that wakes you up at 3 a.m. and whispers, "You're not enough. You'll never be enough. Look at everything you've already ruined." The Stoics knew this battle better than any. Marcus Aurelius didn't just write about external enemies and political betrayals. He wrote in the privacy of his journal, a journal he never intended anyone else to read, about his own fears, his own failures, his own inadequacy. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He wasn't writing that for us. He was writing it for himself, as a reminder, because even the emperor needed to be reminded that the most dangerous battles are fought in silence, in the dark, in the privacy of your own skull. Apply the 3 rules inward. Never react to your own inner critic. When self-doubt rises, when shame surfaces, when the voice says you're not worthy, don't spiral. Don't let it pull you into the story it's trying to tell. Pause. Breathe. Recognize that the voice is not you. It is just noise passing through. Never explain. Stop justifying your past to yourself. You made the choices you made with the information and the capacity you had at the time. You don't owe your past self a trial. You don't need to defend who you used to be to who you are now. Just ignore. Not every thought deserves your engagement. Thoughts are not facts. They are weather. They pass. You are not required to attend every argument your mind starts with itself. There is a version of you that exists on the other side of this practice. A version of you that walks into a room and doesn't need it to change, that hears criticism and doesn't crumble, that faces betrayal without becoming bitter, that survives loss without being defined by it, that moves through the world with a kind of calm authority that has nothing to do with status or wealth or title, and everything to do with the ownership of your own inner world. That person is not a myth. They are not a philosophical ideal reserved for ancient Romans or enslaved philosophers. They are the person you were always meant to become before the world spent years convincing you that your worth was tied to other people's opinions. You were taught to react. You were rewarded for explaining. You were told that silence meant weakness, and patience meant passivity, and ignoring meant losing. You were lied to. The quietest person in the room is often the most powerful. The one who never explains is often the one most certain. The one who chooses not to react is not the one who is losing. They are the one who already won. Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca. These were not perfect men. They were tested men. Men who chose every single day to practice the most demanding discipline available to a human being. The discipline of not caring what happens around them as much as what happens within them. That discipline is available to you right now, today. 3 rules. Never react. Never explain. Just ignore. Not because you are cold, not because you don't care, not because you have no emotions or have given up on the world, but because you have discovered something rare and ancient and devastatingly powerful. That your peace is not a negotiation, that your attention is not free, that your dignity is not up for debate. You are not here to win arguments. You are here to build a life, and you cannot build anything remarkable while you are still tending to fires that other people started. Let the fires burn. Walk away.
Go build. And remember, the most powerful thing you can do to someone who hurts you is still absolutely nothing.